Good evening, and welcome to 30-Minute Reviews. The backlog catalog or backlog files? That was it, the backlog files. I am Adam, and can I just say before we get too deep into this, I love the theme for this show, if I do say so myself. Now, I use Wondershare, or not Wondershare, Dynascore to compose the theme music, where they got a nice catalog of music that artists submit to. You pay this monthly fee. You put in how long you want it, and it'll use something. I think it's some kind of AI where it'll take the track that's there and it'll lengthen it or shorten it to however long you need. Um, and it's great. I wouldn't use it for a feature film score or for anything major like that. But for 15-second jingles and theme music, it's great. But it's and it's also kind of like ethically sourced AI to an extent, where it's like it's AI that like it's it's using stuff that the artists are being paid for, because the artists are submitting their music to Wonder to be used in the software, and then it's only using that music. It's not it's pulling music from the internet and generating. Like I was listening to a podcast and they were talking about what's it called? They were talking about this thing that can generate music based on prompts, and I'm like, that's a little weird. I'm not sure how I feel about that. This one I feel like is a little bit better because it's specifically using music created by artists for this purpose. But I either way, I guess I typed in 8-bit and it gave me a list of artists who made music that sounded like 8-bit, and then it did its thing, and here we are. But I do love this theme. I think this is my favorite theme of all of them that we have so far. And up until now, I think my favorite was probably the year in review, or the Christmas one. But this is now number one. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to talk about ethics in AI. We're not here to talk about the new theme music. We're here to talk about this new show. And what is the backlog files? Well, I was looking at my what's on sale on Steam, and while I was doing that, I was looking at my Steam catalog, and I was like, I have a fuck ton of games that I have put very little time into, if played at all. On top of that, it's like besides Steam, it's like I have PC Game Pass, which gives you a fuck ton of games to play too. I have my Switch that I'm constantly playing games on, and I play a lot of video games, and I play a lot of not just newer games, but a lot of older games too. So it's like, why don't we do a podcast about that? Plus, we haven't had as much money coming in ads, so we need more shows. So we're going to do this. If it gets popular, maybe we'll spin it out into its own weekly podcast. But it is just going to be a weekly episode on 30-minute reviews for right now. Maybe it'll get its own specific feed, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But for right now, it is within the confines of 30-minute reviews, as is the watch list, which happens later in the week. The watch list episodes happen, and we're starting with the Outer Banks, because that popped up on Netflix, and Netflix is forcing it down my throat via notifications. So we started with that. We did episode 1 last week. Episode 2 will be this week. This week's a little weird because of the Academy Awards, so this one got bumped to today. Usually it's going to be on Tuesdays, or on Mondays, I think, is when I have it. Yes, Mondays is when I have it. The schedule for 30-minute reviews will be as follows. This week is a little weird because of, again, the Academy Awards, and I got sick, which threw the entire thing into a clusterfuck of sorts. So the schedule will be as follows. Monday on 30-minute reviews, we'll have the backlog files, where we'll talk about video games. Tuesday is our standard 30-minute reviews episodes, where we'll talk about a movie. And Thursday is when we will have our watch list episode, where we talk about a TV show, which will be an episode a week, where we talk about a TV show, starting with Outer Banks, obviously. So before we get into it, we're here to talk about let's get into it. We're here to talk about City Skylines, which is a city builder game that I bought a while back, and I wanted to really get into it. And I saw this one jumped the list. It was going to be I was eventually going to get to it, but I decided to put it up a little bit further because City Skylines 2 got announced, and I wanted to get back into this one. Now, I think the interesting thing about this is that it is a deceptively deep but relatively easy to use city management simulator or city builder game, where there is plenty for you to do, and there are plenty of options, and there are lots of things to do to keep your city happy. But at the same time, um, it is pretty easy to get into and just figure out as you go. And I think that it comes a little bit from the fact that, like, when you play this game, the way it works is kind of designed, and this may sound dismissive, but I don't mean in a dismissive way. It's kind of designed where it uses the same incrementation for leveling up that you would find in a mobile game. And what I mean by that is, like, when you go and play, like, SimCity Build It on your phone, you don't have to do the same, like, leveling up buildings to get people to move in and that kind of thing. Like, that's not built into the ecosystem of the game. Um, but what you do have is, kind of this. What's the word I'm looking for here? This, when you level up, like, as you get more population in your city, more things unlock. So it's not just like you're being thrown in. Like when I played SimCity 2000 back in the day, it kind of just throws you into the deep end where you have to kind of figure out everything as you're going. You have to figure out, you know, okay, so I need education. Okay, so I need police. I need fire. I need this. I need this. I need this. Um, and I need all of this to go, and I need it all to move smoothly. And you have to do it all from the beginning. And it's like, it's a lot to manage all at once. This game gives you the opportunity to ease yourself in. And it's baked into the general foundation of the game, where you're not kind of forcing yourself to have to do everything everywhere all at once. You have to just kind of move in slowly. You build your first roads, you build your power plant, you get your utilities in terms of water and sewage, all of that's lined up, it's all good. And then you build houses, you build commercial zones, you build industrial zones, all of that kind of stuff kind of happens pretty quickly. And then as your city grows and as you get more people moving in and as your tax revenue goes up, you end up getting to the point where you have more and more, more things unlock. You unlock the ability to get schools. You unlock the ability to have police. You unlock the ability to have firehouses. And to an extent that is somewhat reflective of reality. And I don't mean this in a dismissive way where it's like, it is reflective of how these municipal services are not necessarily needed for these small areas because other municipal services around it will fill in as needed. So, like, as these things grow, these smaller, if you build houses in an area, it's like as long as it's close enough, you will get what's it called? You will get uh, um, a police force from neighboring towns. You will be able to send your kids to the schools in nearby neighborhoods. Like, you will be able to go slightly further away. And then as the population grows, you'll add more services in. So it is kind of reflective of reality and makes it a more realistic way of building it. And it's not designed to kind of just throw you in wholesale and kind of hope for the best. And I think that that's really where this game kind of succeeds in a weird way, in that regard. And then on top of that too, just the amount of external support that this game has in other ways, which just in terms of mods, in terms of continued support from DLC, that's relatively cheap, but it does have a lot of really cool stuff you can do in it. Like, built in is like, there are mods for like God mode. If you don't want to sit there and work on and slowly have your city build a population to unlock stuff, you can just jump right in and turn on God mode, turn off money as a thing, and turn off, turn off the need to unlock everything and just have everything unlocked from the beginning. Like, you can set that up so you can just jump right in and have it all done, and it all works very well. And there's plenty to mod into the game. There's an active modding community. There is, tons of DLC packs that add in tons of stuff that, like, if you don't have it from the beginning, you don't feel like you're missing anything. Like, when you start the game out and you don't have the ability to do airports, like, I didn't feel like I was missing that, and then I saw, oh, there's a DLC pack that gives you airports. Oh, there's a DLC pack that gives you disasters. Like, that kind of stuff, and it doesn't feel missing either, which is a nice thing to have there. Especially considering the base game is so cheap at this point. So it is kind of an interesting and fun way to look at it. So if you're looking for an interesting city, building simulator of sorts, this is definitely something that should be on your list, especially considering it is relatively cheap. Let me check the price. Yeah, at only $30 for the base game, it's a pretty good deal. There's also a console edition available. I've never tried it on console, and for me, I've always had a harder time playing these simulators on console. The real issue comes in where it's like simulators for me always work better point and click. Back on Beware of Spoilers, when we talked about Cardboard Kings going to the Switch, that one was an anomaly with Cardboard Kings on the Switch. I don't think that even came to North America yet, but they gave me a code for it, and I don't know if it's out in North America yet. But Cardboard Kings on the Switch was kind of an anomaly in terms of how well it played with what's it called? How well it played with just with the controller, because usually when you get these games that are designed with Business Simulator or City Simulator, something like that, there are so many options and so many menus and all of that that it can get hard to manage. There have been a few, and again, Cardboard Kings is one of them. I think of Thrillville. I think of like Theme Park Roller Coaster for the PlayStation 2 handled very well for a game that was being built into what's it called? That was being built into a what's the word for here? That had that level of depth, especially for its time. It had if you go back and play Theme Park Roller Coaster, which I think is a console port of Sim Theme Park, or a sequel to Sim Theme Park that was ported to console. When you go back and play that, it holds up very well in terms of the amount of depth that you have in terms of setting patrol areas and all. We're not talking about that today. We will eventually talk about that game because I do love that game to this day. But I think Thrillville is going to be the first one we talk about that's like that. But yeah, in terms of a game doing that and having that level of depth, um, I don't know how well this translates. Now, granted, this one is deep, but it's not so deep that I don't see it translating to not to being hard to play with a gamepad. But when I was settling in to play this, I have a gamepad to play other games on my computer that require it more. Like, I could not imagine playing Kingdom Hearts keyboard and mouse. I just couldn't. Like, I can't fathom how that would work, and I have no interest in trying to figure that out. So I just plug in my Xbox controller and I play Kingdom Hearts with a gamepad, and it works just fine. I just don't think that this is a game where it never struck me as something that you need to do it. But it also doesn't strike me as a game that if you were to do it, it would be unplayable. But there's definitely the option to do so, especially if you have like what's it called? I think it's available through Xbox Game Pass. It's definitely on PC Game Pass. If you have that, it's definitely worth checking out. Um, but yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap up for today. Uh, so unlike the watch list, the back catalog or the backlog files, we do have one game a week. So next week we'll be doing Race to the Sun, which is a game that is a personal favorite of mine. I started playing it on the PS4, but we'll talk about that next week. Then we have Grow Home, which is another game that I discovered years ago that I loved. Then we have Thrillville Off the Rails the following week, and then Tiny Detour, which I still have not played, but I got it like dirt cheap on Steam. So we're gonna give that a shot, and we're gonna try that out. But we'll wrap up there for today. So until our next episode, which will be next Monday, the episode should go up around midnight. And again, for those of you listening who use Google Podcasts, for whatever reason, the episodes don't go live immediately, or at least they weren't up until this week. I think for whatever reason this happens sometimes. I gotta force through 2 episodes in like a 24-hour period, and they both go in. We'll see if that got fixed, but if it's still not fixed, I would recommend moving to another service to listen to your podcast, like Stitcher or Spotify or something else. It's also available on YouTube, but there's no video component. But we'll wrap up there for today. So our next episode of this will be on Thursday. It will be the outer, or on Friday. It's usually Thursday, but we moved it to Friday this week because of the fucked up schedule. The Outer Banks episode 2, season 1. So until then, have a great rest of your week.